We got the plug over there ready whenever he calls in so we can get him on here.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention?
He's already put in.
5 seconds left in the game. Over. You believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
I'm just here so I won't get fined.
Breeze hits it in the air to center. We will see you tomorrow night.
It's crunch time.
Welcome to another Monday. Welcome to another episode of Crunch Time with Joe, Scott, and Wags. I got to get used to that still because I just saw that you changed the name on our Facebook page. And to be honest, I'm still not used to it. Is it weird?
You're still not used to Scott being a part of our team?
No, I'm used to Scott being a part of our team. I'm just not used to...
You're not used to Scott being sitting here and having everything kind of... associated.
Well, for the longest time, you didn't have Scott on the page. You didn't have him as, part of Crunch Time with Joe and Wags. It was always Crunch Time with Joe and Wags, even after the longest time of Scott being here.
Well, we wanted to make sure he was permanent.
Yeah,
you know,
I believe it's permanent now, right?
Yeah, I think it's permanent. I mean, it's one of those things we got to make sure that that the people that we bring on can stand me. That's what it boils down to. You got 4 months to kind of get used to me and my idiosyncrasies and all of that stuff. So,
ooh, nice choice of wording there.
Hey, you know, I do what I do.
So, guys, I know we're all introducing each other and talking, but I think we have a special guest that people would probably like to listen to a little bit more than us.
Oh, yeah.
We have Mr. Randy Karraker from ESPN on the line with us. Randy, can you hear us?
I can hear you guys. How's it going?
Good. How are you today?
Everything's terrific. Thank you. Hope you had a good fourth and are ready for the second half of the baseball season.
We did. Hopefully we get to see a little better second half than we did that first half. That was a little rough.
Yeah, I don't know that the Cardinals are going to be a whole lot better than what we have seen. I wrote about that at 101ESPN.com. It's just the offense, even if you get Carpenter and Goldschmidt going, I really question what Harrison Bader is capable of offensively. I think you've gotten the best that you're going to get out of Dexter Fowler at this point. Wong is what he is. We don't really know what Paul DeYoung is. You hope that he's the first month and not the last couple of months, but I have a tendency to believe that Paul DeYoung is somewhere in the middle, and then Yachty looks to be on the decline. So I don't know that you're going to get a whole lot more offense than the Cardinals have gotten out of the first half of the season.
Do you think we can get anything out of Tyler O'Neill? Do you think he's a 20 home run hitter, or is he just more of a fourth outfielder type? Do you think?
I think that he's capable of hitting 20 home runs, but being a fourth outfielder. I don't think he's as good a hitter as Jose Martinez is, and he never has just demonstrated command of the strike zone. O'Neill hasn't. He might be a guy that hits 190 and has 60 hits and 25 of them are home runs. And I do know that that's not what the Cardinals need right now. Right now, he does look like a 4A player, a guy that is probably too good for AAA, but not quite good enough for the major leagues.
So the first half of the season, what were your takeaways from this Cardinals team? Now, you say you're not going to probably see much more offense than you have seen. What are your biggest takeaways? For me, it has to be the bullpen because, to be honest with you, this bullpen has been really good. And at the forefront of that, you have Giovanni Gallegos.
Yeah, I would agree with that. My biggest takeaway is the struggles that Paul Goldschmidt endured, and you have to hope that at the age of 32 that he isn't what he has shown in the first half here, that he's what he was in the second half last year in Arizona. You're right about the bullpen. Even with the loss of Jordan Hicks, they were a lot better than I think a lot of people expected, although I think for most of the first half of the season we would have expected more out of Andrew Miller. I had my questions about this starting rotation before the season started, and it wasn't because of ability, but you have Michaelis and Flaherty who had really good years, and it's hard to have that second year be as good as the first. And then the other guys were all injury questions who all wound up being plus on the injury side. Carlos Martinez was hurt. Waka got hurt, Wainwright got hurt, and so I think what you see is what you get from the bottom three, and you have to hope that Flaherty and Michaelis will bounce around. But Giovanni Gallegos has been a revelation. He's been superb for the Cardinals, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see him when they're winning games in a lot more leveraged situations in the second half of the year.
So, Randy, they're only 2 games out as bad as they played in this first half. With the trade deadline coming up, do you think Mozeliak will pull the trigger and make a trade? And if he does, do you think starting pitching is probably the place they need to go?
I think he should. I don't think there are a lot of starting pitchers that I would like. I would like Bumgarner, even though his numbers aren't what they have been. I think one of the things the Cardinals are missing is an edge, a crusty attitude that people like Lackey, Broad, Chris Carpenter had that, Lance Lynn had that, Tommy Pham had that. The Cardinals aren't a team that plays with an awful lot of edge, and I think they could use that in their clubhouse. I don't know who's available aside from Bumgarner that would have that. And I just mentioned pretty much every position except for first base. If they could find an upgrade bat, I would be all for it. I don't know where you would get that guy, but if it's a better bat than what you have right now with Colton Wong at second, if it's a better bat than what you got out of the first half of Carpenter at third, if it's a better bat, this is the spot really, than Bader in center field, I think the Cardinals should be pursuing that.
I agree with that, but with the contracts they've got with Fowler and the extension they gave Martinez, I don't really see them going out and getting another outfielder. Do you think that's possible?
No, because I'm sure they still believe in Harrison Bader too. They've talked so much about winning this year, though. If they could get a guy, and I don't even know who would be out there, that is in the last year or has a year of control left, that's something that they should consider because they know that they aren't going to have Marcell Ozuna after this year. So if you can get an upgrade, then by all means do it. And they've got other money coming off of the books for next year. They can afford to, if they wind up with an expensive proposition in the outfield, they can afford that for this year. And then with people like Wainwright and Waka and Marcell Ozuna coming off the books, there's going to be plenty of money within their budget next year to handle somebody like that. And once again, I don't even know who it would be.
So I want to ask you about, we talk about starting pitching. Everybody in this town wants Scherzer, but to be honest with you, I see the Washington Nationals trending up. Everybody wants Bumgarner, but to be honest with you, Bumgarner, I don't know. Now, if the Cardinals were hoping to get maybe a fifth starter option, I wouldn't be shocked. And I was talking to Wags about this maybe a couple weeks ago, and a guy like Matthew Boyd.
Matthew Boyd is interesting, but I don't know that he is what the Cardinals need. The Cardinals need a guy that is a front of the rotation horse that hopefully has done it before. We would all be intrigued by Max Scherzer, but Max Scherzer, isn't going anywhere. Their owner, Mark Lerner, wants him to be the first Nationals Hall of Famer, and they're ahead of the Cardinals in the standings right now. So why should the Cardinals be buying and the Nationals be selling? Secondly, with a guy like Boyd, yes, he's young, but you still don't know how he's going to perform for what I think is going to be a pressure situation. That's why I would zero in on a guy like Madison Bumgarner, because he has done it even without his best stuff. He's pitched well in big September and October games before. And I do think, and I don't know anything about the demeanor of a guy like Boyd, but this is a team that requires and is looking for some toughness now. And that's why if I were them, I would be looking as much at personality to add to this team as I would physical presence. You
bring up Bumgarner, and what would you think you'd have to give up for a guy like that, being at this stage in his career?
Well, and the more starts he makes for the Giants, the less he's going to cost. I would guess right now that with all the teams that are in the hunt, you're probably talking either for the Yankees, a guy like Clint Frazier, a major league ready outfielder, or a major league ready starting pitcher. Although the Giants do have a decent amount of starting pitching in their system, I would think that they would be looking for a bat. And I don't think the Cardinals are a match there. I think the Cardinals, if they would make a move, it would have to probably be one of their three young third basemen, and I know they aren't moving Gorman. So you're probably looking at a guy like Montero, which would be a tough pill to swallow, especially if you don't plan on re-signing a guy like Bumgarner. But because of the number of teams that are interested in starting pitching and because of his history in pitching so well in the postseason, I would imagine that the price is going to be pretty high.
So we talk about this year not being so great, at least to start. What do you think down the road, looking at the Cardinal minor league system? Is it bright? Is the future bright?
I think long term it is. I really like Dakota Hudson and Jack Flaherty, and I think that guys like Austin Gomber have a chance, and Jake Woodford have a chance to form a pretty good starting rotation for you in the future. Their bullpen is already very young, and when you get a guy like Hicks back, I think you're going to be better off. I don't know what to make of Carlos Martinez at this point, but I think pitching-wise, you're in pretty good shape for the future. You know that you're going to be playing Paul Goldschmidt for the next 5 years. That's just a given. They could probably use some help on the middle infield, but we mentioned the 3 young third basemen that they have, Gorman, Nunez, and Montero. And they do have some interesting outfielders. A guy like Dylan Carlson started in the Futures game and is a 5-tool player. You think about a guy like Lane Thomas, who has come up and been with the big league club already this year. He's a serviceable guy. We don't know what Bader is going to be offensively. They don't really have, aside from Gorman, that big-time power bat in their system. But if I'm looking 3 years down the road, I feel pretty good about the Cardinals based on what I know about the young guys that they have at the major league level and the players that are on the way. And hopefully they'll have enough collateral so that they can go out and make the moves that they need to, like they did for Ozuna and Goldschmidt.
Talking about this team now, do you see Tommy Edman getting a chance to play regularly in the second half, or do you think when Carpenter comes back, Edman goes back down to the minors?
I think that Tommy Edman has earned a shot to play. And if they're insistent that Carpenter be in there at third base, then Edman should move over to second base. And it wouldn't bother me if he was playing shortstop. He's a more productive offensive player right now than Paul DeJong. I think he has to be getting at bats at the major league level. I think he's shown the Cardinals that he deserves to be here. And based upon really Colton Wong's career, I would say that I would rather have Edman at second base. I'd rather have that unknown than what I know about Colton Wong. And with the way I still like Paul DeJong, I don't think he's a middle of the lineup guy. I think he's more of a number 6 or number 7 hitter in this day and age. I would probably be inclined to move Edman over to second, but I don't know how you guys feel about this. I would actually rather have him play third and maintain the defense that Wong gives you at second base, and then let Matt Carpenter be a guy that moves around. He can play second, he can play first, he can play third base. He's a decent bat off the bench. He has been in the past when he's been in that position. I would rather have Matt Carpenter be sitting there in a utility role at this stage.
I agree. I think we all agree with that totally. Just with his past history of the Cardinals being so loyal to their position players and Carpenter being here for so long, I don't really see Mozeliak or Schultz doing that. I see Carpenter getting the most of the time at third base, probably, if he's healthy, don't you think?
Yeah, and especially since they signed him to the extension, which was a foolish extension. They had an option on Carpenter for next year. They gave him an extra year at $18.5 million. They aren't the sort of franchise that you would think would put that sort of money on the bench. But heck, you look at a guy like Jed Jerko, and he's essentially a bench player that's been making 12 or 13. And to me, Matt Carpenter is the same guy at this stage right now as Jerko has been, except he's left-handed, but a guy that plays third, second, first, and they got Jerko to sit him on the bench. But I think the one thing that you brought up, going back to that loyalty that they have to their guys, I think that's what would be the reason that they would play Carpenter. They also, though, I think have to look at what gives them the best chance to win. And I think most objective observers would say that Edman gives them a better opportunity to win a game on an individual day than Matt Carpenter does.
I agree with that. And, we're all frustrated with their offense, although their outfield defense kills me too. For me personally, pitching and defense is what baseball is all about, and watching Dexter Fowler and Jose Martinez in the outfield together every night just about kills me. It seems like they give up more runs than they actually get back with their offense.
Yeah, especially with Fowler. You just can't be dropping fly balls, and he's dropped several this year. He's not great, and that's one of the reasons that even with his offensive shortcomings that they want Bader in there, because when Ozuna was going bad early in the season, if you had Ozuna and either Fowler or Martinez, you need a guy to cover a ton of ground out there, and Bader does that. But if you're playing Jose Martinez in left and Dexter Fowler in right. You do have some defensive shortcomings. I don't think that that's going to prevent you, if you're a good team, from winning a division. There have been teams with equally poor defensive corner outfields that have won World Series. The 04 Boston Red Sox with Manny Ramirez and Trot Nixon. This group would be as good as that group, but that group hit, and you have to be able to offset your defensive shortcomings with some offense.
Yeah. I just wonder, the roster construction, some of the contracts that Mo's signed extension to, the Jose Martinez, the Matt Carpenter that we talked to, even the Miles Michaelis, the deal that he signed this offseason, are starting to look like bad deals. Kind of makes me wonder if they're going to be gun shy on going out and signing anybody at this point. Even Goldschmidt looks like a bad deal right now.
Yeah, but they have shown a propensity to keep trying. Look at all the money they've spent on left-handed relievers over the years. Whether you can go all the way back to people like Scott Radinsky and Ricardo Rincon, Randy Choate. They spent a ton of money, and they keep pounding that rock, trying to get that lefty reliever going. Obviously, they got burned on Fowler, and they were willing to go out and get a guy like Goldschmidt. I don't think that this team is afraid of spending money. I think it's more an issue of their evaluation process, which you referred to. I think that's the big issue with them, is that they need to find out who guys are that can play for them in the future. And right now, it does not look good. It looks like their evaluation process somewhere along the line got flawed. When you have Fowler and the first half Goldschmidt, by the way, I would make that trade with Arizona again today if it was presented to me. I still think he's going to hit. But when you look at the acquisition of a guy like Colton Wong, or not Colton Wong, but Jed Jerko, but then you look at the guys that they've moved. When you do get virtually nothing, well, you got Gallegos for Voit, but Luke Voit has turned into a pretty nice offensive player, a all-star quality player. When you lose a guy like Tommy Pham in a trade that has nothing to show for it, when Oscar Mercado is hitting second for one of the hottest teams in the league, in the American League in Cleveland, there have to be questions about the Cardinals' evaluation of the talent that they have and the talent of other teams that they're bringing in.
With all due respect, I think that ship's kind of sailed when Jeff Luhnow left.
Well, you weren't going to fire John Mozeliak on the heels of winning a World Series. And I don't know if I agree with that. When you look at the people that they have drafted and brought in and won with, people like getting a guy like Flaherty, drafting a guy like Jordan Hicks, drafting a guy like Paul DeYoung. Really, if you look at what the Cardinals have done in the draft as opposed to what the Astros have at the major league level, aside from Correa and Bregman, the Cardinals have been better, right? He drafted Mark Appel with a number one overall pick. Luhnow drafted Brady Aiken with a number one overall pick. He inherited from the Ed Wade regime. He inherited Jose Altuve. He inherited Dallas Keuchel. He inherited George Springer. They went out and signed Josh Reddick to a budget deal in the outfield. Everybody knew about Yuli Gurriel. That was just an owner being willing to pay for Yuli Gurriel. So, and obviously the catching situation they have done through trade as well. So aside from going out and making the trades for Verlander and using a number one pick on Correa and a number two pick on Bregman, I don't know that the Astros evaluation process has been anything less than obvious. They certainly don't evaluate like the Dodgers do, going out and finding people like Muncy and getting a guy like Bellinger later in the draft and doing a great job of getting Chris Taylor. I think the Dodgers are the gold standard now for player evaluation. I think while Luhnow is very good, I think we kind of overplay that, well, we should have kept him as general manager and let Mozeliak go right after winning the World Series.
I would agree with that. And boy, talking about being on a roll, that Dodger team's just scary. It doesn't seem to matter who they bring up. They just keep producing kids that can hit, don't they?
Yeah, they're unbelievable. That's professional talent evaluation. And I'm talking about getting a guy like Muncy from the A's, getting a guy like Taylor from the Mariners, going in their own system, turning a guy like Kenley Jansen to a pitcher from a catcher. and then obviously having the money that they can go out and get a guy like Ryu, who's pitching great for them this year, and being able to waste the money on a guy like Rich Hill. They have a lot of positive things. Heck, look at the acquisition of Justin Turner. Turner was a waiver pickup from the Mets. They've done a magnificent job since Andrew Friedman got there of bringing in people that everybody else in baseball overlooks and turning them into key performers for them.
I guess the only question about them is as dominant as they've been in the first half. We've seen them kind of do this the last couple of years, and then they get to the playoffs, so they kind of run out of steam as they get into the later rounds of the playoffs. It'll be interesting to see if they can hold up this year, or if not really having a whole lot of big name starting pitching other than Clayton Kershaw kind of hurts them as they get later into the playoffs.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you're exactly right. That's another team that should be interested in a front of the rotation guy because of the injury issues as well. With Kershaw, obviously, you don't know if Rich Hill is going to be there. Ryu seems to get hurt all the time. Buehler has had his moments, obviously. Buehler would probably, like he did last year, start a game one for them. They've got some other young pitching on the way. Urias is still a guy that they could utilize. But I think they're another team that could use a veteran front of the rotation type guy.
And there's no way that Madison Bumgarner would go to the Dodgers.
No.
The Giants would never do that.
No. And even though Andrew Friedman and Farhan Zaidi are very close friends, and the Dodgers did allow Zaidi to go and become the Giants GM, and Zaidi knows that organization, that Dodger organization, better than anybody. No, that's a trade that is not going to happen.
Well, and you just mentioned Andrew Friedman, and that's pretty much why the Dodgers are the gold standard as far as talent evaluation. I mean, a guy coming from Tampa and doing what he did there, they pretty much got a steal getting him to come in to be their president of operations. And then you still can pepper that in with, having an advisor like Tommy Lasorda there and having winners like Magic Johnson and stuff like that as part of the organization. I mean, the Cardinals have that in the sense of the pageantry and all that stuff. But in my mind, it almost seems like we've kind of backed off a little bit about the past for this Cardinals team. And I don't know if it's the direction that they're going, that they're changing it becoming more corporate level or what, but for me, it seems like the pageantry has died a little bit in St. Louis, despite the success we've had, despite the Hall of Fame players we still have here. Just for me, it doesn't even seem like it's put in our face as much anymore. And I don't know if that's something that they're intentionally doing or if it's just kind of happening.
No, I think there's been a brain drain, to be sure. When Jeff Luhnow walks out the door and he takes a guy like Mike Elias, who's now the general manager in Baltimore, and takes a Segmadal, who's now Elias's assistant. They lose a guy like Chris Correa because of the hacking scandal. They lose Dan Kantrovitz to Oakland. There's a lot of premier front office people are bouncing around baseball right now that were with the Cardinals. One of the reasons that they moved Mozeliak up is because they were worried about somebody taking Mike Gersh from them. So, and they wanted to keep as many quality people as they could. They promoted Randy Flores recently to assistant GM because they've had half a dozen or more good people leave this organization. And while the Cardinals have had people leave, the Dodgers, and hey, believe me, the Dodgers have lost a lot of guys too, but the Dodgers are still living off of that talent evaluation that Zaidi and the other people in that organization that have left was able to procure for them.
You brought up the Cardinals brain trust, and that brings up a question for me. Michael Gersh, do you think he really has control as the general manager, or is Mozeliak still kind of pulling the strings there, and Gersh is more of a figurehead than anything else? It's kind of hard to tell because sometimes they interview Mozeliak as the head of the organization, and sometimes he kind of still steps into that GM role when he's being interviewed and stuff. So who do you think actually pulls the trigger there?
Yeah, Mozeliak is still the general manager. He's the guy that when the trigger gets pulled, he's the one whose finger is on it. Michael Gersh is laying a lot of the groundwork. He is finding out who's available. He has great relationships with other general managers. But I think for most teams, when you look at a Cubs, I don't think Jed Hoyer is injured. I think the general managers are laying the groundwork for a lot of these deals, and then it gets to a higher level. And with the Cardinals, when you're looking at a deal like a Goldschmidt deal, or when you're looking at an Ozuna, then that's getting to the owner. There isn't a big move that happens with the Cardinals that is happening, or a small move for that matter, that's happening without the approval of Bill DeWitt Jr. He has his finger on the pulse of everything that's happening with this organization on a daily basis.
So before we let you go, because you got your show coming up soon, just have another quick question. How is the tattoo doing?
It's great. Today is July 8th, I guess, and I got it 2 weeks ago at the Ink Spot in St. Peters. There's an Ink Spot location in St. Peters and also one in Troy, Missouri. And so I've got a Stanley Cup with an arch over the top and a Blues logo off to the edge, and it's been very comfortable. For all of the talk that people had for me about how uncomfortable it would be, it's been no problem at all, and people have enjoyed it. I've talked for 8 years about getting this thing, so now that I have it, people always want to see it. So I never tuck in my shirt anymore.
Well, Randy, we really appreciate you coming on with us. It means a lot to us that you took the time to do this, and hopefully we can get together with you again and talk some playoff baseball maybe towards the end of September.
Hope so, guys. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Randy. Have a great day.
You too.
Yeah, that was Randy Karraker. The fact that he came on and spoke with us is incredible. I mean, he's got a show coming on. We're about 2-3 o'clock. They go for a few hours, and it's a pretty big show, pretty big deal. And to take some time out before his show starts, that's incredible.
Yeah, I'm sure he went straight from talking to us to now he's ready to do some show prep of his own.
Yeah,
so that was really nice of him to come on. I really appreciate him doing that.
That was very, very fun to do. And to be honest with you, I mean, this interview went different than I thought it would go, because when going into it, I didn't want to say anything negative, because, just as Cardinal fans, as people who talk about the Cardinals, you hear about that all the time. I was wanting to focus on the positives, and I'm kind of shocked it went that way. But you know what? In a sense, I am glad it went that way, because it's honesty. Let's be honest here. The Cardinals have not been good this year. They're lucky they're at 500.
Well, I mean, what would be the point of doing an interview and just sunshine and rainbows and
exactly
stealing the phrase from Randy Karraker right there? But what would be the point of that? Because we wouldn't be honest. They haven't been good.
Yeah, it's not like we're paid by the Cardinals. If we were being paid by the Cardinals, then yeah, they'd probably want us to talk all good, all good, all good. But we're here to talk about what we see and what's going on, and the fact that we can do that is amazing.
However, if the Cardinals are interested in paying us, we're more than happy to take their money.
Totally. I'll shoot some side out my butt to talk about the Cardinals if they pay me. No problem.
I can tell you how wonderful I think Dexter Fowler is with almost a smile on my face.
Oh, my. Wonderful.
Wow.
So, yeah, like you said, though, they're 500 essentially going into the All-Star break. They've got once again, another, I wouldn't say easy stretch coming out of the break, but one of those stretches where if they're going to kind of hang around, they have to have a big start to the second half. I mean, you come out of the break hosting Arizona and hosting Pittsburgh before traveling to play 4 in Cincinnati and then 4 in Pittsburgh. And that's pretty much your spot, because after that you play Houston and Chicago, and you start to kind of get back into those higher echelon teams. So this essentially the next 2 weeks after the break here, they have to make a move in the standings that they should have been making here at the end. I mean, the fact that you went, you lost the series to the Giants, and yeah, you won the series against Seattle, but going into the break on a 2-game losing streak just doesn't make you feel good, despite the positive things that we did see out of the Cardinals over the weekend.
Well, and the biggest one, and you saw, everybody's talked about this, that if Paul Goldschmidt starts hitting, that whole offense takes off. Look what happened in those first 2 games against San Francisco. Goldschmidt starts to hit, and everybody was hitting. It just takes the pressure off of everybody else. And so I think, and we saw him take much better at bats even when he made outs this weekend. Kind of hang around. So that's a huge thing. And then we saw the reemergence of the Jack Flaherty we remember from last year yesterday. And that's a huge sign if we can get him going.
Yeah, but you also got to think about this. He's got to do it against better competition. Now, I understand he has done it this year against good competition. He's done it against bad. My thing is, he needs to do it more against good competition, because if you get into postseason play, you're going to be facing good teams.
Right, but it's a step at a time.
You got to start somewhere.
Right, you have to. No, but you do get my point. It's like, these guys got to, even Dakota Hudson, if he can figure it out, because he had a good June.
He's been the best pitcher right now.
The best pitcher they have.
No, I mean, the last couple starts, let's be honest, have not been good. So,
really?
He gave up 3 runs against the Giants, but he went 6 and gave up 3 runs. That's not awful.
I'm sorry, the start before the Giants. I'm trying to think here. That was.
Yeah,
That's
he he did have a bad one in San Diego that kind of came out of nowhere where he gave up 7 runs in an inning. But for the most part, I mean, he's been their most consistent starter.
Yeah, and give me a starting pitcher that doesn't have a game where they give up 6, 7, 8 runs.
That's true.
I mean, it's a long season. Even the best give up big time games. West Coast game, late game, different routine, all that kind of stuff. It happens. So, I mean, it's not like he has been out there. I mean, he's 7-4. He's got a 3.51 ERA, 68 strikeouts. I mean, he has been essentially the Cardinals' best pitcher pretty much the season. And that's all you can really say about that. I mean, yeah, he's given up 6 to Milwaukee. He gave up.
Yeah, he struggled against the Brewers early.
Yeah, I mean, and that's it. I mean, he gave up 3 to San Francisco, and he gave up 1 earned run against San Diego. So earned run wise this year, there's only been 1 game where he's given up more than 3 earned runs in a game all year. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I mean, yes, he gave up 7 runs essentially in that game against San Diego, but only 1 of them was earned.
Yeah, it kind of fell apart on him in that game. And, other than him, the other bright spot of that starting rotation is the guy that nobody really expected much from, and that would be old Uncle Charlie himself. Mr. Wainwright's just kind of throwing time backwards and looks like the Adam Wainwright of 4 or 5 years ago.
And he's doing it with not so much velocity as he is. He's just crafty. I mean, we usually talk about
he's always crafty though.
Crafty left hand. Yeah, I can agree with that. But also, I mean, he wasn't. What was he throwing? What was his fastest he threw? Like,
if you watch him lately, he's hitting 92, 93 again.
No, I mean, when he was first coming into the league, what was it, 90,
oh, he
94,
was
94, 96? Okay, I mean.
He was never really a power pitcher.
No, that's what Wags was saying. That's my whole point. You don't have to throw hard in this league to be a good pitcher.
No, and the biggest key for Wainwright this year is he's found the touch on that curveball again.
Mm-hmm.
He can throw it wherever he wants to, whenever he wants to, and he can throw it different varieties of it. He's turned that curveball into about 4 different pitches. If you watch him, he's turned into that old crusty veteran.
And that's something that you need on a team as a 4th or 5th starter. You need that veteran that can go out there, give you 5, 6 innings, get you through. But it was like Randy was talking about, you need somebody at the top of your rotation. And I think Jack Flaherty can be that guy soon, not now. I think he can. I think he has that Chris Carpenter-ness to him where he's fiery and he'll get, when he gets a little bit more veteran, more years in the league, you could see him being one of those guys that could take control of the rotation and be the fiery, let's go out there and get him. Right now, he's still this year 2.
Right.
So, to thrust him into that role when he's still trying to develop himself is something I really wouldn't want to really kind of push. So, yeah, he's going out there and getting somebody, if you can get like a Bumgarner who's got that pull, is something that they should really look at.
Like Randy said, even if he's not the same Madison Bumgarner that he was 2 or 3 years ago, just that tough, he might be right. Bringing in Bumgarner, that personality, kind of like John Lackey, kind of towards the end of their career, but still going to go out there and fight. And, you hit my guy, I'm going to nail you. That just toughness that he's right. The Cardinals really haven't had since Chris Carpenter.
Yeah, very much so.
Or John Lackey.
I was going to bring his name up and I decided not to. Wainwright was that way too. I mean, not to the point where Carpenter and Lackey but he was.
He was passionate.
Yeah.
And he wanted to, I mean, you would see him screaming his glove every night, but it was never to the level of like a Chris Carpenter.
No,
he was one of those guys that would rip your head off if you looked at him wrong. He had the Bob Gibson in him.
Absolutely.
So, and my brother has a quick question. Why won't they put Ponce in the rotation over Wainwright or over Waka? He's proven himself to be quality.
Scott?
I can't answer. I honestly don't have an answer for that one. The Waka thing, I guess they still have faith in him, and I mean, every once in a while he can go out there, but you don't know what you're going to get from Michael Waka from inning to inning, much less start to start.
I mean, is it one of those things where they're looking at it as, hey, we're going to shop this guy, so we got to show what he's capable of doing, so teams can look at it and go, okay, this is a guy we want to bring in.
But you're not going to. He's a free agent, and he's having a bad year. I don't know that even if that was their thought, you're going to get much from him. Plus, with his injury history, I'm not sure.
I don't think a trade will happen with Waka, I'll tell you that. Just because of the injury history, just because of the
teams have taken on guys with injury history before.
Well, right, yeah, no. I can see Waka being a part of it. I mean, he's definitely not going to be the centerpiece of a trade you might make a 2 or 3 player trade, and maybe Walk is a part of that, possibly.
Do the Cardinals bring something back then, Scott, that can help you now and can help you in the future if you put that 3-player deal together?
Well,
from the Cardinal point of view.
Well, I mean, I think you have to. You're
like only, what do you bring in?
Well, it depends. I don't know who's interested. Who's interested in
yeah,
Walker?
Right.
I mean, you've got to go get. Wags and I were talking about this before the show. This is the year. You're only 2 games out. You're only a game and a half out of the wild card, and yeah, you're 500. But this is the year that Mozeliak needs to be aggressive and go make that move because, yeah, the Dodgers, like Randy and I were talking about, the Dodgers are good, but they've shown the propensity to fall apart in the playoffs. So why not go make that big splash? And with everything wide open, who knows? You get in, maybe you win the thing again.
I'd love to see that, but you know what? With Mozeliak's lack of guts, can I put it that way? He hasn't made, in terms of deadline deals, he has not made good deals, if any deals at all, since the 2011 when they brought in Edwin Jackson. Now,
John Lackey.
John Lackey
in 14 was a pretty big
Well,
move.
They made that trade, if you remember, Scott, because they were trying to shake things up with, I think, Joe Kelly.
It was Joe Kelly and Alan Craig.
Alan Craig, yes.
And they wanted to make room in the outfield for I just lost his name. Passed away.
Tavares.
Oscar Tavares, yeah. I blanked there for a second. Yeah. Thanks. But, that was part of that. Tavares was ready, and they wanted to give him a spot in right field. Plus, like you said, they wanted to shake things up, and they needed that person in the locker room. And, they don't get to the playoffs without John Lackey.
And that's got to be the mindset going into this second half in the deadline this year is there needs to be a shakeup. You also need to start positioning yourself for the next couple of years. You've got guys coming up. You got the Gormans and stuff like that are not ready yet, but will be in the next couple of years, that you have to start thinking about what's the next step, what's the next plan, and seeing how you can win now and win later. It's very, very tough to be able to do that. They have shown that they can do that. It's just a matter of if something right comes along and they feel like they can pull that trigger. With Bumgarner, yeah, you're probably only going to have him for this year. I'm not sure. I'd be nice to sign him long-term. Or at least another year or two. I can't remember if he's under contract or not.
He's a free agent.
Well,
and that's, if you remember, he made that no trade clause with the 8 playoff teams on it.
Yep.
So, if you get him, you're going to have to sign him for a year or two. That's why he did that, to negotiate a new deal to go somewhere. But if you could, because you're going to lose Wainwright more than likely. He's going to go away.
Walker will probably go away.
So that opens up 2 spots. And if you bring in a Bumgarner, Miles Michaelis is not your number 1.
No.
And I don't think I think if you can keep from having to put that pressure on Flaherty or Hudson for another couple of years, and Bumgarner is older, but he's not that old.
No.
How old is he? Is he in his 20s still?
He's probably early 30s.
Early 30s?
He's been around for a while. So I would say probably
29. Turns
29.
30 on August 1st.
Okay. So, you could see giving him maybe you could get him to do a 2-year with an option for a third, something along those lines, possibly. You have to give him a decent amount of money.
Oh, yeah, of course. But they've got it. The Cardinals have it.
The money they have. And maybe you don't have to give up as much as you think for Madison Bumgarner at this point.
And frankly, I wouldn't mind giving up. Karraker on the phone said that the Cardinals have, 3 third base prospects?
They do.
I wouldn't mind giving up one of them.
Well,
because
that's why you have 3 in the system. You can probably give one of them up.
Who would you give up? Now, you've probably looked at their farm system. You have Gorman, you have Montero.
Montero is the one that's the closest to being in the big leagues, and Gorman's not going anywhere.
No. So who is the other?
The other, I can't even think of his
Malcolm
name.
Nunez.
Nunez, yeah.
But Montero and Gorman are the top 2. I think Montero, if you could get Bumgarner and give up a Montero and and another pitcher, if you don't have to give up, as long as you don't have to give up Jake Woodford, if you have to give up both of those guys, that might be a steep price. But if you could give up a younger minor league pitcher, a double-A guy, something like that, that's got some big upside, that might not be a bad move.
Yeah, it really comes down to what the Giants would want in return, and what other teams can offer. You pretty much have to know who's going after him. All the playoff teams are going to be wanting a rotation guy, I'm sure. It seems like Chicago, Milwaukee, they're they need those teams need pitching.
I don't know
if they would go after them, but those are teams that I see that rotational wise they would need a starting pitcher.
We've been saying that about Milwaukee for how long now, and they just don't do it.
Yeah.
And the Cubs are just old. I mean, old and not reliable. I mean, I say not reliable in terms of one person only, and that's Yu Darvish. Well, they brought him in to be.
Cole Hamels is hurt now, and
Hamels is hurt. Quintana's been bad lately.
Lester is,
and Chatwood's in the bullpen. Think about this: Chatwood was brought in to be a starter. He's in the bullpen now. So
yeah, but didn't he lead the league in walks last year? So there's probably a reason he's in the bullpen.
And the last time I looked, Craig Kimbrell's ERA was about 13.50.
So basically, he's the Cubs version of Greg Holland.
Well, I'm not ready to go that far yet.
Not yet.
Because Holland had like an 87 ERA. So at least Kimbrell's gotten some outs.
But that team they haven't lived up to the hype.
Mm-hmm.
They were supposed to be this greatest show on turf baseball team, basically, and just dominate. And they won the World Series, but since then they've been a pretty big disappointment, really. I mean, their offense hasn't been consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Schwarber's never really turned into the player they thought he was going to be. Rizzo and Bryant are good, but Bryant's been streaky.
Yep.
Has been hurt a lot. They just haven't. Javi Baez turned out to be the best of that group, really.
And they were talking about him with big strikeouts. Now he's hitting 280. And I don't know if I would say I didn't expect this, but I always expected him to have a high strikeout rate.
Well, he's gotten better. He's improved, because if you remember when Javi Baez first came up, I mean, you could you could roll the ball to home plate and swing at it.
Yeah,
as hard as he could. He struck out like 200 times in his first 300 at bats or something like that. They had to send him down a couple of times because they couldn't get him to stop swinging at everything. But you got to give him all kinds of credit because he's worked at it and he's made himself one hell of a hitter.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you have to look for the Cardinals or any other team that you follow is, even if you have a guy that's highly touted and you think is going to be ready and he comes up and struggles, it takes a couple of years for these guys to really hone in on what exactly is, major league sports. I mean, whether it's hockey, baseball, basketball, football, some of the guys, they can come right in and just go. But for the most part, these guys, they have to see what it's all about. And it's one thing seeing for baseball, it's one thing seeing minor league pitching versus major league pitching.
Oh, absolutely.
And in the way things are changed and the atmosphere and the stadiums and the crowds and all that stuff. So for a guy like Baez to continue to improve and improve and improve, that's a credit to him, and it's a credit to the hard work that he's putting in. Well, now the Cardinals have to do that with their guys as well. So don't expect like a guy like Nolan Gorman to come up and just kill it.
Well, and I mean, you can even look at that with Jack Flaherty. Flaherty came up last year and was lights out for the most part. And everybody went into this year with expectations. I even heard people talking about Cy Young possibilities for Jack Flaherty. But you got to remember that a lot of times that second year, there's some regression because hitters see tape on you. Things change, they adjust. The pitchers have to make an adjustment. And, there's a lot of pressure on a 22-year-old kid to come up here and expect him to be the leader of that pitching staff.
And especially after all, the articles of him and Bob Gibson talking and everybody being like, oh, well, if he's talking to Gibson, that means Gibson sees that he's going to be an amazing pitcher and he should be that right away. It's like, no, Gibson sees quality in him and sees him becoming potentially a very, very good pitcher. That doesn't necessarily mean Bob's over there going, look, this year he's going to be as dominant as me and they're going to have to lower the mound or whatever after this season. No, it's a guy looking at this young pitcher and seeing the potential and kind of working with him to build him to a point where he can be that front of the rotation bulldog number one guy.
Well, and the biggest thing Flaherty has to figure out, you see him doing this, he chases strikeouts too much. He's out there trying to strike everybody out. He's got to learn how to get guys out on 2 or 3 pitches so that his pitch count's not at 40 in the second inning or 50, and you can actually extend into, because that's going to kill your bullpen if your starting pitchers every night are only going 5 innings.
Yeah, and I mean, you were talking about, year 2 and all that as well, and you see that with Miles Michaelis too. A guy that hadn't been in the major leagues for 4, 5, 6 years, comes back, obviously has a hell of a season last year. Then all of a sudden, year 2, he pops up and he's got an over 4 ERA, giving up a bunch of runs. Well, of course it's going to happen. There is some slight regression when it comes to what a guy can do in the second year when people finally start to see you and you get tape on a guy and you have your experiences to base it off of. So, that's why I was shocked about the extension when it happened. was, you're basically basing it off of what you've done for me, what you did last year, and not what you could potentially be doing in the future.
My buddy, I was on the road with him coming back from Springfield when that happened, and my buddy was like, "They gave him how much?" We were in Chicago coming back. They go, "We gave him that much?" I'm like, "Yep." After 1 year, yep. So I wouldn't say saw this coming, but I knew there was a possibility. I really knew there was a possibility that it may not be as good as it was the year before.
Well, the question you have to ask yourself now is, who is the real Miles Michaelis? Is it the guy we saw last year, or the guy that was pitching in Texas out of the bullpen and got run out of the major leagues and had to go to Japan?
Well, you have to understand this, though, Scott. The American League is totally different from the National League. I mean, yes.
Yeah, but he's pitching like he's in the American League. Look at his numbers.
But it doesn't matter. My question is, though, which pitcher is he? Is he good enough to pitch?
I want to believe he's the good pitcher we saw last year, because you can't just pull a year out like that out of your ass.
Yeah, you can.
You can.
I mean, you can,
it happens
but
all the time. It's called a career year.
Do you think
guys do it all the time?
It's the contract year bug. Anybody in their last year of a contract is going to have their best possible year they've ever had for the most part.
I think he had one more year here. So
I'm just saying,
I get your point.
You see it because guys on the last year of their contract, it's the complete opposite of like a manager. A manager or a lame duck manager in the last year of a contract is not the same as a player in the last year of his contract looking for another one. I mean, that's the thing. So, yeah, he may have had 1 year left on his contract, but this is a guy coming back over to prove something. Obviously, he's going to have a career year. Now, this year, it almost seems like he hasn't adjusted to what he is seeing. And that's, I think, the surprising thing is, players will adjust, but then pitchers will adjust right back. Well, it doesn't seem like the adjustment has happened just yet with Michaelis.
Well, he's throwing too many pitches right down them. If you watch his games, too many pitches right down the middle with not a whole lot on them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's just bulk. That's just control. And I mean, that can come and go at certain times during the season. But to this point this year, his control just hasn't been what it was last year. I mean, he was pinpoint with everything last year, and that's just not working for him this year. So,
and they had Michaelis as the opening day starter, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're the ace, but kind of does. I mean,
it depends on if you start at home or on the road, though. That's the thing. I mean, I don't think for me, it's if you're starting on the road and you have a guy pitching on opening day, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be your ace. Because I think who's the opening day starter here? Wasn't it Flaherty? So in my mind, when your home opening day starter is probably the guy that you're targeting to be your ace. So with that being said, even the Cardinals were essentially putting the pressure on Flaherty to be the guy this year by having him basically take that start, because it was Wainwright for the longest time.
Right. Well, and, I mean, going back to last year and looking at numbers, who else would you have had open those two spots than those two guys?
Yeah.
So Wainwright's going to start the first game out of the break, and that's
totally different.
No, I know it's totally different. My thing is, coming out of the All-Star break, and we'll get to the All-Star game and the festivities in a second. Coming out of the All-Star break, like you said, the Cardinals need to start making some hay here. Hey, you're still in this division, so you need to win series. Like you say, win series it helps, especially in this division where no one's running away with it. But at the same time, I see somebody getting hot, and whoever that is will win this division. Period.
Well,
that's usually how that works.
But with this division being so bunched up, I guess it's the term for it. It really is. Whoever gets hot at the right time will win this division.
I think it's going to come. Sorry, Joe. I think it's going to come down to whoever makes the biggest move at the trade deadline. Is going to win the division. I honestly believe that.
It is. I mean, because you got basically every team is within 4.5 of first. I mean, Milwaukee's a half game back. We're 2. Pittsburgh 2.5. Cincinnati's even 4.5 back.
And they're 4 under 500, being 4.5 back.
5 under 500.
5 under.
5 under 500. Yeah. So I mean, you could see a team like Pittsburgh. I mean, we play them 7 times over the next 2 weeks. If we don't play up to the standard of Cardinal baseball, Pittsburgh could be the team that gets hot.
Problem
is, on a run.
Problem is, what is Cardinals baseball? what is Cardinal baseball? Because we have not seen it, at least for an extended period, this whole first half.
Oh, well, we saw at the end of last year, I think. A little bit.
We saw it in April. I mean, they just have to get hot. I mean, they're playing, when you said playing Cardinal baseball, the fundamentals, they actually are doing a pretty good job. You know, they're one of the best teams in baseball in defense. They're one of the best teams in base running. I mean, so that aspect of what people call Cardinal baseball, they're actually doing a really good job. You know, you just need guys to get hot.
You need guys to get hot, like you said, Goldschmidt. But to be honest with you, whoever's hitting leadoff, isn't the old saying it always starts with the leadoff guy?
Except the Cardinals don't really have a leadoff hitter.
No, they don't.
You know,
Not a prototypical one.
I mean, Edmund could be that just because he's quick.
You say that, but he's had a couple of good games. What do we know what Tommy Edmund is to say?
No,
he's the leadoff hitter?
that's a good point too. But he's the closest guy I believe to be a leadoff hitter. What are you going to give it to Dexter Fowler? No.
You're
gonna
well, look what Dexter Fowler's done when you've tried to do. I think he's hitless when he's
give
tried to lead
it
off
to Colton Wong. Maybe I don't know. Wong is fast. You need a speed guy up there, right?
You need a guy that can get on base.
You need somebody to get on base. That's more important than speed, honestly. You need an on base guy, and right now, who is that? You know, that's why Matt Carpenter was so good at it for so long, because his on base percentage was so good.
It's so weird to see a rapid decline from a guy like Carpenter. I mean, this guy. We talk about this all the time, but it's just baffling.
I don't know how baffling it is. I think his back is. I think the whole thing revolves around his back. You know, he's been battling that for 3-4 years now.
And there's a pretty good history of when people have back injuries, they tend to not be as good.
And he's getting older. He's going to be 34 at the end of the year. You know, it's just a combination of things.
What do you call Christian Yelich? He backed out of the home run derby because of a back issue.
But he's going to play in the All-Star game.
What do you, Max Scherzer had to back out of the All-Star game because of a back issue.
Because he's an ace pitcher.
Well, yeah, your team's telling that's as much the team saying, hey, you're not pitching in that game.
If Carpenter were hitting 300, 320, 22 home runs, that would be a whole different story. But he's not. And it's because of the back injury.
You know, and who knows? You know, he could take these couple of weeks off and come back in the second half and have a second half like he did last year. You just never know. But I think the back is a bigger issue than the Cardinals have let on.
That's it's going to hurt. I hope it doesn't hurt the Cardinals in the end, because I didn't really like Carpenter at third base to begin with, starting the year. And
you're right. You definitely were on that. You were like, he's not the guy you want at third base, all that stuff. But I mean, if you look at him defensively,
he did a good job.
He did a fine job.
Yeah,
he's done a fine job, but he just looks. It hurts my arm to watch him.
You're just spoiled because you had Scott Rowland.
No, I'm not. It just hurts my arm to see him throw over it first. Hell, I'd rather have David Eckstein get it over there than him right now.
Well, he made all the plays.
So exactly,
but Carpenter's made all the plays.
That's what I mean.
Well, it hurts my shoulder just to watch him throw.
Well, but that's the thing, though. That might be his style. Are you going to go out there and throw like David Eckstein?
No.
Does it look like it would hurt?
No. Yeah, it does.
So, I mean, that could just be the way he throws, and if it's effective and it doesn't hurt him. Now, if the throwing motion is what's giving him back issues, then yeah, totally. That's something that needs to be changed or worked on. But if it's not the thing that's leading to the back injury and he's making all the plays, if it looks like it hurts to you, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, I don't like the way Marcell Ozuna throws the ball, but
he won a Gold Glove. How?
Well, that was before he hurt his shoulder.
Yeah.
You know,
before he hurt his shoulder. Now, I mean, he plays good defense when he's been here, but it's just the throw. I mean, but once again, because of injury, he had to shorten it up. He's still trying to work it out, and obviously, right now, he's not going to really be able to do a whole lot of throwing. But for me, it hurts. But if it's effective, it's Max Scherzer's pitching motion. Like, that thing scares the hell out of me.
Right.
And yet he's sitting here as a multiple Cy Young winner and one of the best players in Nationals history and Tigers history.
Yep.
So, just because a guy doesn't look to you like it's comfortable, if it works for him and it's not affecting his body or injuring him, hey, it works.
Here's an example where it didn't work. You guys remember Tim Lincecum?
It worked for a while.
I wouldn't say a while. It did work for an extended period. I wouldn't call it a while.
Was it more than 2 years?
Yeah, I wouldn't call 2+ years a while. I'd say
in sports, 2 years or more is a while.
He got him 2 Cy Youngs and a couple of World Series, so I think he's doing all right.
So out of the second half, we talk about the Cardinal bullpen, how good it was. No, I agree with you guys.
You just went way out the. Okay, go ahead.
No. So I'm thinking Chris Berman right now when you just did that. Whoop. No, but anyway, the bullpen going into the second half, the Cardinals are going to be in some key, going to have to be winning games in the 8th inning. You're going to have a guy like Gallegos come in. He's been very good for the Cardinals. Who's the closer? Carlos. They already came out and said it, but do you think you can go to him for more than 1 inning if you had to? Let's say the Cardinals were tied after.
Yeah.
I'm saying down the stretch, they want to save his arm too because he's had injury issues.
How many closers do go more than 1 inning? Anywhere?
Not many.
So why would
this ain't the 1980s?
So why would the Cardinals be trying to use him for more than 2 innings?
Well, because
if he's designated as their closer, they're not going to let him go more than 4, maybe 5 outs max.
Yeah, he's going to throw 20, 25 pitches at most.
There are that I've seen instances this year where closers have had 2-inning saves. Now, it's not often. It's not like the fireman days in the 1980s.
So you're kind of.
But
I don't know. I'm confused now. So what's your question?
My question to you is, when Carlos doesn't close, when he has thrown too much, who's that second option?
Andrew Miller. Have you seen?
Do you really trust Andrew Miller?
Have you seen Andrew Miller throw lately? Andrew Miller.
Yes, the
old Andrew Miller's back.
I tend to agree with that, but can he get both righties and lefties out at this stage?
I think he's done it since he's been back. With the pitch that he has.
Yeah.
Yeah, if Andrew Miller's Andrew Miller, then yeah, I don't have any question throwing him out there.
There's a reason why Cleveland did what they did when they had him. He was out there at any point during the game to shut down the other team and their scoring opportunities. And if what we have is that Andrew Miller, which it looks like over the last couple of weeks we do have, then yeah, he's that secondary option that if Martinez does pitch 3-4 games in a row, I don't think he'll go 4 in a row, but if they get in that situation where they're like, we got to rest Carlos for a day and we've got a chance to win, yeah, you're going to throw Andrew Miller out there and be okay because you've got Gallegos down there. I mean, John Gant,
Brebbia.
I mean, even Brebbia has had a little bit of a hiccup here the last week or so, but yeah, you've got guys that, it's not like you're sitting there going, well, we have Miller and Martinez, and that's all we trust.
Well, even Dominic Leone is healthy and throwing good again, so you can put him there.
Yeah.
Mike Myers is close to coming back when he's healthy.
How close is he? Do you know?
He was going on. I think he's supposed to go on a rehab assignment in the next week or so. So you're getting closer to getting him back. They have plenty of options in that bullpen.
Yep, that they do.
And if you go get a starter, then you move one of those guys, whoever you take out of that rotation, into the bullpen and. Plus we're not even talking. Ponce has been pretty awesome in the bullpen when he's pitched since they brought him back up.
See, I don't understand that, and there's no answer to that. But why don't the Cardinals infuse like a young guy like Ponce or a guy like? I know you don't know the answer to it. Maybe I'll go to Wags. But do you have an answer even? Do you know why the Cardinals don't? Instead of putting Waka out there every 5th day, maybe give
we
Waka more.
Already answered the question as far as what I think and what Scott thinks.
I just don't get it still. It makes no sense to me because you have – is Gomber still hurt?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
It comes down to loyalty. I mean, it's really what it comes down to. It's a president, GM, coach's loyalty to what this guy has done in the past versus what
at times
you can actually get out of somebody.
At times, loyalty is a good thing. At times, you just need to throw that out the window because
this regime doesn't do that. No. And you're talking about taking a guy who was the NLCS MVP and got him to the World Series. And was so dominant that they're not going to do that because he did that for them. That's just kind of how Mozeliak works. Just like all those times when Wainwright shouldn't have been pitching a couple of years ago, they kept sticking him back out there because he's Adam Wainwright. The same thing we were talking about with Carpenter and Edman. Does Tommy Edman get to play when Matt Carpenter comes back? Even if Carpenter's not healthy, I think Carpenter's going to play the majority of the time because he's Matt Carpenter.
We talk about Carpenter and Edman, but what about Jerko when he comes back? Because there's going to be a point where he comes back.
So
What do you,
I mean, it's going to. They've never done anything with Jerko. I mean, they have no loyalty to Jerko as the fact that he's going to be the guy when he comes back, he'll be a bench player, and they'll put him in when they think they need to put him in, and that's about it. They don't have loyalty to Jed Jerko. He is Carpenter. He is Jairo Munoz. He is Tommy Edman. You've essentially got 4 of the same guy on this team, and it's something Scott's talked about in the past. Is if you've got these guys up here, what's the point of that? Because they're 4 of the same people.
Yeah.
And really the only one that has power is Jerko, and it's still hit and miss here. So it's one of those things they got to make those tough decisions in the sense of, at what point does the loyalty stop? And at what point do they go out and actually make some moves?
And I mean, they've given Jed Jerko plenty of chance. We know what Jed Jerko is. He's going to run into a home run every once in a while, but Jed Jerko, I mean, there were a couple of years there where he was your cleanup hitter.
Yeah.
Where did that get? I mean, I like Jed Jerko. He's a good role player. He's going to hit you a pinch hit home run, but he bats 10 times. He's going to hit 2 home runs, strike out 7 times, and that's just who he is. So I mean, there's no real role for him, I don't think, at this point.
And they're not going to be able to get anything from him in trade because he's been hurt.
Yeah,
I mean, you have no way to showcase him.
Yeah, if you were going to trade him last year, really, if they were going to trade him the year to do it, would have been after the year he hit 30 home runs. But
at that point, you would have gotten high return for Jerko. But what is high return for a guy like that? Like
draft pick or a minor league player,
some kind of prospect. Yeah. You could have gotten at that point. You could have gotten a higher level prospect probably. But that's the same place you're at with Jose Martinez.
Mm-hmm.
You should have traded Jose Martinez last year when he was really.
But with Jose Martinez, I'm not trying to step on you. I'm sorry about that. But with Jose Martinez, there was a limited market for him anyway because we know the guy can't field, so he can only DH. So you go to the American League, 15 teams, and there are teams in the American League. I forgot the number. That aren't good. So you're at a limited market there. Yankees, Red Sox, Twins. I'm just trying to name teams you could have.
But
at the time, Minnesota was not an option.
Well, but here's the thing. All of those teams that need somebody, why wouldn't one of those teams that are bad want a DH that could make the middle of their lineup better?
I mean, I'm not saying that, but that isn't the kind of team that would go out and make a trade for a bat. At least not yet I don't know, because he is 28, 29. He's not young.
He wouldn't have cost before the Cardinals gave him. They could have gotten him for almost nothing because he had no cost. This goes back to my original point last week, where there's a reason why the Cardinals got Jose Martinez for $1 from the Royals after he won a minor league batting title. Nobody else wanted him. I think, and I like Jose Martinez, but Jose Martinez is a bench player, in my estimation. I mean, I'm not sure that Brandy said he thinks that they could still win with Martinez and Fowler in the corner outfield.
No.
I'm not sure about that.
No.
Like I said, Martinez off the bench, great player, role player. His defense, American League DH, I think he'd be great. But, I've just seen too many balls fall and get in gaps. And like there was a guy, and they were talking about it the other night when Michaelis was pitching. There was a runner on first, a base hit to right field. The guy scored. Because it took Martinez so long to get to the ball, and then he stood there and looked around before he threw it, and the guy scored from first on a single to right. I mean, that can't happen.
No, that cannot happen at all. I mean, Randy made the point of, the Red Sox with Manny Ramirez and Trot Nixon, slower guys, but they were hitting.
Yeah. I mean, Manny might have been the American League MVP that year.
In 2004, I believe. At the very least, he was in the conversation.
And Trot Nixon was a pretty good outfielder, pretty good hitter, I should say. At that
and that's the thing. If I think that was the point he was making was, between Fowler and Martinez, they're probably slightly better defensively than those two, which isn't saying much. But because those two were able to basically make up for any mistakes they made in the outfield, that's why they were able to win. So if Fowler and Martinez were doing that, were able to make up for any miscues that they have in the outfield, you could probably see them being able to win with that, but they're not. And that's kind of where we're at is we've got subpar defense in the outfield and they're not making up for it at the plate. And that's why you're sitting at 500 essentially right now.
And what did we expect from a guy at the Cardinals second baseman? What like when Wong first came up, and I want to ask both of you this. What did you expect out of him from an offensive standpoint? You knew he was a good defensive player coming up.
I mean, I didn't know any of that. I didn't know anything about Colton Wong when he came up.
What were you never watched? You never watched shows that say this kid.
I work a lot, Joe. I don't have much time to do anything.
That's a good point too.
So I mean, I'll put it this way: after Wong kind of burst on the scene, and kind of watching him over the last few years, he is a plus defender. He is a plus defender. Doesn't mean he's not going to make errors. He's not going to make mistakes.
Everybody's human, right?
He goes out. He wants to go out there and play good defense. He wants to be a Gold Glove caliber defensive player. He's still one of those guys that when he gets up to the plate, he still wants to launch the home run.
He's gotten
better. Yeah, this year even he has been more disciplined. He's gone the opposite way more. Once again, going back to development of players. If they are developing over the course of time, that's what you want to have. That's what you want to see. That's what you should expect. Now, if he just continued to uppercut swing for the fences the entire career, that's a whole different story. He is at least trying to become a better player, and he's had good at bats this year. And Scott was talking about before the show. He's if you were to take his statistics right now, if you would have said at the beginning of the year at the All-Star break he'd be at this number, you'd probably take that.
Yeah, and the weird thing about Colton Wong is for so many years he struggled against left-handed pitching. This year, he's hitting the heck out of left-handed pitching, and he can't hit right-handed pitching. So, I don't know if that's just too much work on the left-handed thing, too much focus on it. But, as much as people want to rail on Colton Wong, he's right in the same place pretty much at home runs and RBIs as Dexter Fowler and Jose Martinez. I think he's actually got more RBIs than either one of those two have, hitting seventh or eighth.
So there was talk of wanting to see the outfield of O'Neill, Bader, and Thomas and see what they could do. To be honest with you, I'm shocked we haven't seen that yet.
Well, Thomas is back in the minors, so that's probably not going to happen.
No, but when he was up here, there were some talk about that. I'm like, you know what? Why not?
Well,
there's nothing to lose.
Because there was. They're sitting two games out of first place. They're not gonna sit there and tinker and
what's better. Okay,
things out.
You tell me.
You're going into a week where you're playing Seattle and San Francisco, the two worst teams in the league, and you're going to sit there and say that
the Cardinals struggle against those teams too. So it's not. What did they do? What did they do
going into the week? You're going to sit there and really say, oh, we're going to struggle against these two teams. So let's go ahead and try out an outfield that's all young guys that's totally unproven. You're 2 games out of first place.
But what the other option isn't much better.
We didn't know that until the end of the week.
Although when you look at it, I think Martinez and Fowler both hit like 3 home runs this week. So
yeah.
So I mean,
I don't know. There was talk on some station I was listening to, and you know what? That's an intriguing idea. Now I didn't think they did.
I think it was right.
It was this show, Joe.
I think it was us talking about.
Yeah.
That.
I was trying to hint towards that, but thanks. But no, seriously, it just would have been interesting to see because.
But why? Why? Like,
wait.
There were 2 games out of first place going into a week where you're playing 6 games against the 2 worst teams in the league.
How do we do in those 6 games?
Well, you can't do hindsight. You can't sit there and be like, "Oh, well, if we would have played these guys, we probably."
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying get some new blood in there, see what you got.
But you don't know that until you played the games.
That's the risk. Sometimes that's.
So this is just going. So going into the week, you're 2 games out of first place, and you're playing the 2 worst teams in the league.
No, I get what you're saying. It's just,
and you're gonna go out there and throw just random young players out there and be like, well, just because we're playing the worst teams in the league, maybe that means they're going to play well.
All right. Yeah. But
I mean, that makes no sense to me. Now, if this team were 9-10 games out at that point and you're going against the worst team, yeah, maybe at that point you play your young guys, get them some experience against lesser quality opponents. And if you lose because you're already out of it, but they're still fighting for a playoff spot.
And they actually played, even though they only went 500 in those 6 games, they actually played a whole lot better.
Yeah,
they did.
Mm-hmm. Sunday's game, if it's not for Kevin Pillar, you probably win that game.
I didn't even know Kevin Pillar was still playing.
I didn't either. I was like, when did Kevin Pillar go to the Giants? But He made 2 great catches that took runs away from the Cardinals, and then the Giants, Evan Longoria hits a home run, and they win that game.
Only hit.
Yeah.
The first hit that he allowed, that Flaherty allowed, was that bomb to Longoria.
Yep.
Oh.
Interesting.
And they fought back. They fought back in a bunch of games. Even the game they lost in Seattle, they were down 3-1, came back and tied it, and then Gallegos gave up a home run in that game that cost them the game. But they showed a lot of fight. Paul Goldschmidt looked a whole lot better this week. Saw some real significant improvement in his at-bats. Even when he didn't get hits, he looked a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, it's just there are some positives going into the second half that they're able to build on that. Like I said, the next 2 weeks, you've got a somewhat favorable schedule. You have to take advantage of it. That's something they haven't been able to do yet, but maybe take this, 3-4 day break, get yourself right. The only person that really has to even worry about anything is Paul DeYoung, because he's, is the only all-star. So it's not like you have 3, 4, 5 guys that are having to compete in the home run derby or the all-star game and traveling and all that stuff. They're able to kind of reset and relax and get ready for that second half. So, I mean, I'm expecting a big push coming out of the break. If they can do that, then this team could go on a run and take advantage of the lack of, what Chicago and Milwaukee are doing.
All right. So what's the pace? What's the pace win-wise that you'd have to get, Scott?
More than you lose.
Well, yeah, but
more than Milwaukee and Chicago.
Right now, they're basically on pace to win 88 games. So you want to get it in the 90s, which isn't going to be. I mean,
it's not going to be easy based off the first half, but that's where you want to be.
Which team shows up? The team we saw in April, or the team that we saw the last couple of months? And if you get Paul Goldschmidt going, and apparently he's already testing his hand, seeing where he's at. If you could get Goldschmidt hot and going and get Marcell Ozuna back, although the question there is how much is that hand going to affect his bats when he comes back? But if you can get somewhat of what we had in the first half out of Ozuna and a hot Goldschmidt, and hopefully maybe Yadi's hand starts to heal up a little bit,
and maybe a Matt Carpenter comes back looking like the Matt Carpenter. I'm not saying of old, but of 2 years ago.
I don't know if you need that. I mean, if Tommy Edman continues to play better, you don't have to rush Matt Carpenter back and not hope and pin your hopes at third base on Matt Carpenter
and not be the Bohart of this team.
Well, I mean,
I know,
yeah, pretty much. But you still haven't seen a huge sample size from him.
No,
either.
right.
I mean, he's brought some excitement. He's brought some spark. He's a left-handed bat. I mean, it's something the Cardinals need. So if he can be consistent, then maybe don't rush Matt Carpenter along.
Well, and a guy that I think is going to have a better second half, because he had a horrible end to his first half, but if you watch some of his games, he's had some bad batted ball luck, is Harrison Bader, because he was crushing some balls the last couple of weeks, and people were making great plays on him. And eventually that's going to even out too.
From a Harrison Bader point of view, it can only get better.
And, his again, I don't care if the kid hits 200. I want his defense out there, honestly.
Yep.
He has, I mean, I'm not going to compare him to, well, why not? Does he have Jim Edmonds' skills in center field?
No.
Although Jim Edmonds says he's better than Edmonds says Bader's already better than he was. I mean, it's hard to say that because Edmonds was such a star all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
But when Edmonds says I think he's better than I am now, then that's hard to.
It's hard to argue against.
Right.
I mean, I just having seen him play in person, as far as Bader's concerned, I still don't know if he knows how to read things off the bat the way that Edmonds had, because a couple of the games I've been to, just watching him, he'll break back and then have to come back in, which, I mean, that's not a bad thing. I mean, he's still making the plays, but the reactiveness is still new for him.
Right.
But the fact that he's working with a guy like Jim Edmonds, who is probably one of the best center fielders in Cardinals history, continuing to work with him and to have Edmonds say he is better than him. I mean, I'm willing to say, hey, I'd rather have him out there for his defense. And when his hitting finally does come along, he's going to be a pretty good player.
Yeah. Because Edmonds keeps saying he thinks Bader is going to be a 30 home run hitter at some point.
I don't know about. I mean, and when we were talking to Scott Warman weeks back, I brought up a home run number to him. I said 20 and about 80 RBIs. And 80 RBIs, he said, was probably on the high side, maybe. Yeah. That he may not get to that, but the 20 home runs, he does have the power.
Oh, yeah.
but I don't know if it's 30 home run power. I don't. It maybe 25 at the most.
Well, and he's still really young too.
Yeah.
You don't know what he's going to grow into.
Yeah, we don't know what his ceiling is, but that's a good estimate based off of what we heard from him when he was in the minor leagues.
Yeah, I mean,
so
he had a couple of 20 homer seasons in the minors. So yeah, I mean, you just have to see, and I mean, defensively, he's definitely your best option in the outfield.
Yeah, hands down the best option out there. So, yeah,
I want to ask you guys about one thing though. If the Cardinals do end up, it ends up going south, do they explore the possibility of playing some young guys, like maybe bringing a Thomas up or playing in O'Neill a lot?
Well, that's the hard thing to do though, because you have a lot of guys under contract. You can't sit there and say, oh, we're going to bring up all these young guys, because there's no places to put them. Like, you can't send down a Matt Carpenter. You can't send down a Colton Wong. You can't send down a Paul DeYoung.
You can't send down a Dexter Fowler.
You put them on the injured list, but I mean, I don't see that being the case. If they do basically fall out of it before the break or before the deadline, maybe they ship out, just basically buy out contracts. I don't think that's going to happen. No one's going to take No one's going to take these guys on.
Well, the Mariners did take the Mike Lee contract.
Oh, the
Cardinals are paying.
Cardinals are paying 90% of that contract.
So that's not, basically, we just basically gave him to Seattle. So, I mean, that's why I'm saying I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of like buyouts, contract buyouts or anything like that, or retaining salary in a trade or anything like that.
I don't see them struggling, but I'm just bringing up the point.
But that's the thing, though. You can't. You have so many people. You have too many guys already on this team making a ton of money that it's hard you can't maneuver it. If you had a bunch of young guys that you could kind of interchange, but send ups and all that stuff, yeah, maybe, bring some of the younger guys up, but you're not going to have this wave of young guys coming in and taking over the outfield and the infield or the rotation or anything like that, because you just have no way to maneuver around this team to open up those spots.
Well, and they change things too. You don't have the September. Yeah. You can't call up as many players as you want in September anymore.
What is the limit?
I think it's like 30 something.
Yeah, and then you can only have like 26 active for a game, so it's not like you have 30 guys on the bench or 30 guys in the dugout and in the field. It's you have to submit a list of who's available for that game. I mean, it's almost like the NHL with scratches and all that kind of stuff.
In one way, I can see that that's a good thing, but in another way, it's kind of a shame that you can't get some of those kids up there to at least experience what a September run is like. Even if they're not really playing very much, but.
Yep.
I always feel like sitting on the bench is experience too. I mean, is that bad to say, or am I nuts for saying that? Because if you're up there, you're experiencing what Major League life is like.
Well, it depends. It depends on what you're doing. I mean, you don't want your young prospects up here just sitting, but in like it used to be, like it's not anymore. In September, when the minor league season's pretty much over, then that's a great experience for him to get up here and see what it's like to be around the guys and see what a September push is like. But you don't want, like, you wouldn't want to bring Norland Gorman up here and say, hey, come up and sit down and watch for a while. That doesn't do you any good.
No, especially for a guy like that, probably most touted prospect since, hate to say it, Pujols.
Not Tavares,
but I'm talking like, well, no, you're right, Tavares, because Tavares had that kind of power too, because, well, what did they say? And it was a bad comparison right away, just because you don't want to put too much pressure on a guy. They said he was the next Albert Pujols.
Oh yeah, they were saying that from the time on. I'm not sure what to expect from Gorman. I mean, Gorman's too young at this point to really have any expectation.
Well, the Cardinals are really high on him, and
well, you should be. They're
really
of your organization.
Another guy they're really high on is Carlson.
Yeah,
that I saw him play. He's a pretty good player.
Well, and again, he's a kid. He just turned 20. So you're talking about two kids that are, in Gorman's case isn't even 20 yet. And Carlson just turned 20. So you're still looking at a couple of guys. Maybe at the end of next year you see Carlson, maybe. I don't think you see Gorman until 2021, more than likely. So, I mean, you're still a long way off from that.
And that's where you have to look at, the deadline again of winning now and for the future. I mean, it's, that you can't go out there and offload Carpenter and Wong and DeYoung and all these guys because obviously you need to field the team next year.
Why would you want to offload DeYoung though? Yes, he's been struggling, but
I mean,
Paul DeYoung
it's
has
one of those
gotten
things,
better.
Though. It depends on what this organization wants to do going forward. If they feel like they are going to be waiting until Gorman and Carlson and some of the young guys are ready to go, and they're committed to a full rebuild, it's not going to happen. It's not happening. But I'm just saying that's the only possibility that you would entertain ideas of trading a guy like a Paul DeYoung is if you're like, look, we're going to scrap this and take it all the way down to the chassis, and we're going to get what we can for the guys that we can now, and we're going to go for the next 2 or 3 years and just not win and build up. That's not the Cardinals. That's not going to happen in St. Louis. But that would be the only way you would trade a Paul DeYoung.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I don't even know that you would do that with DeYoung because he's just 20. So even if we were going to do that, he'd only be 28 still at that point. So I don't see that happening.
Paul DeYoung, he's gotten so much better at short. I remember he had no range coming up, and I'm like, this is not what I mean, because I like a shortstop with a little range. This year, he's been really good. He's had way more range. He just makes all the plays. He's not the most savvy fielder, but he gets the balls. He gets outs.
That's what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
And he makes a lot more tough plays than you think he does too. He's him and Wong. That's why I'd hate to see Wong go because the two of them up the middle are what you want defensively. You want to make your team strong up the middle, center field, shortstop, second base, catcher. With Bader, Wong, DeYoung, and then Yachty, you have that.
That Sunday night game when Wong made that play, what was your reaction? He basically just tipped it to DeYoung.
Well, that's chemistry right there. Yep. That's exactly what it is. Is you've got guys that are you have that comfort level of knowing if you try something, you've got a guy there that's going to basically kind of hold you up. Like he's going to make the play for you. He's going to help you out. He's going to do everything he can to make that play work. And Wong just trusts that he knows what DeYoung was going to be at, and that's what happened. I mean, I was actually watching a video of I think it was Omar Vizquel today. The Futures game, and the transfer that he is known for, ball coming into the glove, and it was one of those things where it's like right to his hand. I mean, those are the things that a guy like a Wong and a DeYoung they're able to do, and they're able to take those chances because they have that chemistry together.
Well, and I was lucky enough to grow up watching Ozzie Smith and Tommy. Hurt, and there was nothing. I mean, they'd flip the ball behind. They wouldn't even know where the other one was. Just flip it behind their back, and it would be right there.
Yep.
They were in sync. Like I've never seen a shortstop second base combination like that.
I wish, I kind of wish I was alive for that, just because baseball was so much different then. I like that game. I like the home runs, but I also like the small ball, like manufacturing runs, and that just seemed like a better era for baseball than it is today.
It was a different game. You played on AstroTurf, and the stadiums were bigger, and it was just a different game. I mean. You're talking about all the guys that have 30 home runs at the All-Star break this year. I mean, you'd have one guy, two guys get 35 home runs all year back then.
Yeah.
You got to 40. That was something.
Chicks dig the long ball.
Yeah.
That's why stadiums are smaller. Field or walls are closer in. Guys bulked up. Steroids became an issue. McGuire and Sosa happened. Then Barry Bonds happened. I mean, that's just what it is. I mean, you're going for entertainment value. When it comes to what these sports entities are nowadays, it's all about making the money, and you have to give the fans what they want. Well, if the majority of the fans want to see home runs and power and all that stuff, you're not going to build stadiums that have 450 to center and build a defensive minded team.
Although things are secular in baseball, so I can see it kind of going back a little bit that way, just because there is more excitement when it's not just home run strikeout. When you get back into base running and you get back into the fundamental stuff, there's more action.
Well, I mean,
exactly.
I'd be very interested to look at, because they're doing all these studies about, length of games and all that stuff. It'd be very interesting to go back and look at what the time length of games were back in the 80s, early 90s, and compare that to where it is now in, the age of strikeouts and home runs versus small ball manufacturing. I mean, there's not a whole lot of difference. I want to say that max is it's like a 6-minute difference.
Right.
So it's not like you're going to be having longer games or drastically shorter games or anything like that. I mean, you're basically going to have the same game, except you're going to have more excitement, I think.
Right. And what's funny, talking about how they try to change everything. Now everybody's worried about, we need to move the start times up so the kids can go to school. I remember being a kid, game started at 7:35.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Game started at 7:35. and you stayed till it was over. It might have been 10:30 or 11 o'clock, but nobody complained.
No.
Nobody was upset that, hey, my kid stayed up late tonight and we watched the whole baseball. I mean, you just did it. It's like we turned out fine.
No, when the Cardinals did that, I know a lot of teams did that, but when the Cardinals did that, they wanted more of an attendance, and I didn't see that. I really, even at the 6:45 starts, I didn't see more families coming. I didn't see, you know what I mean?
Well, see,
the upper decks were still emptier than heck. I mean,
the upper deck's never emptier than heck at Busch Stadium, but
during the week,
Bay.
during the weekend, during the week before school's over, yeah, or when school starts up, yes.
There's still 38,000 people there every night.
And
we're not Tampa.
or Tampa / Montreal.
Well, what they did though is, they decided, we want people to stay later, so we want them to stay for the whole game, so we're going to start at 6:45. What happens then is people don't get off work in time, and so at the beginning of the game, nobody's there because everybody's trying to get into the ballpark because working security there, it takes an hour and a half to get people through because we have to check bags, and people like to show up with 15 bags full of food trying to get in the ballpark that you have to check everything. So people miss the first 2 innings because they're standing in security lines.
And then they don't, have a lead going into the 6th, and everybody leaves because they don't think they're going to win. So they're out for like 4 innings.
Yeah.
So kind of like Dodger fans, right? At least earlier.
It's more so because Dodger fans just don't care.
Yeah, basically.
It's L.A. Like, St. Louis is not L.A.
Talking about Dodgers, did you guys see the video of the Dodgers playing through the earthquake the other night?
Yes.
Oh, that was nuts.
That was pretty
What
cool.
did they have in, what was that, like a 7.1 magnitude?
Yep, 7.1.
The cameras are shaking, and they're just playing away like nothing ever happened.
We're used to this.
You hear a collective scream in the crowd?
No.
Yeah, that was nuts. Did you guys also see the collision? Because I posted that on the page, and Yadier Molina had some choice words. Did you, by chance, read that in Instagram?
I did. I can't repeat maybe 90% of the words that were said in it, but I did see the Instagram post.
We are not
Molina.
FCC regulated.
I know, but you still don't want to say that.
No, you're right. No, you're right.
Yadi was definitely passionate about it. And I mean, when you just look at it, it does look like a pretty cheap hit. Like somebody said, if that happens in an NFL game, you're getting ejected for targeting.
Yep.
It just can't happen. I mean, the way the rules are now, you can't do it. Whether Marisnik says he did it on purpose or not, you got it. You can't go for the head. Like
he had a lane for the plate, though. Like if you watch the play, Lucroy's foot was on the third base line. He had,
and he was, and Lucroy's body was over by the first base line.
Yeah.
So he did not have a lane to go. He got caught in between deciding if he wanted to slide or
take him out.
And he basically got into that mind of, I'm going to slide. Oh crap. I'm not going to. Boom. I mean, it was not intentional. Is it illegal? Yes, it was totally illegal. And he was called out, and it was the right call. And, you pray for Lucroy because he went to the hospital and is having medical evaluations done. Probably a pretty severe concussion, I would assume, is what's going through.
Fractured nose. And
stuff like that. So it's, it's one of those things that you almost have to look and see if you have to even adjust the rule even further. Because this is the guy, he got caught in between a decision. That's a tough, that speed to be able to make a decision of, oh, do I slide? Do I try to go around? Do I run him? I mean, that's a tough decision to make in that split second.
And, there's a lot of differing opinions on the play. I listened to a station in town this morning coming in, and the host on that show said there was no doubt in his mind that he did it purposely, that he thought that he changed his pattern of running to go right into him purposely. So, he was saying that he thinks that Marisnik should be suspended for a couple of weeks. But, nobody's going to know for sure what he meant to do or not. Like you said, he got caught in a tough spot there. But, you can't – he definitely went right to the head, which, that was the worst look of anything of the play. So
he lowered his shoulders. So, yeah, you don't do that. You don't lower your shoulder.
But that's the thing, though. You don't know. Is he lowering the shoulder because he's going into his sliding motion, or is he lowering the shoulder to level a catcher? That's the thing.
Yeah.
You don't know what it is. I mean, the way I viewed it, it looked like he was running. He saw where he thought the ball was going to go. You can actually see him kind of change direction. And in my mind, it looked like he was changing the direction and he was going to think about sliding. And then at the last second, he saw that the ball was not going to be where it was going to be at, kind of held up, and he ran right into him.
Yeah.
So it's so open to interpretation.
Absolutely.
That they have to figure out what they really want to do in that situation. And that's not something we can really, I guess, make the choice on that.
No. I mean, that's part of baseball now. I mean, for years, we grew up where, that was what you did.
Oh, yeah.
Catcher had the ball, you flattened him.
Oh, yeah.
The game's just changed. And it's funny, it changed. And the only reason that it really changed is because
Buster Posey,
the catcher that they thought was going to be the next superstar, got hurt. And so they changed the whole rule. Buster Posey hasn't really lived up to what he was supposed to be.
No.
I mean, he's a singles hitter now that's hitting like 220. But, I mean, he was supposed to be the face of baseball and got hurt. And so they changed the whole rule.
Well, I mean, I remember with my brother and I growing up, we would play games where one of us was Tom Pagnozzi and the other one was a guy running into him. I mean, that was what we did. It was the thrill of the game. You had a pillow and you just leveled the person. That's what you did.
I remember a game in the 80s playing in Dodger Stadium. Jack Clark was coming home. Mike Scioscia caught the ball. Clark leveled him. When Scioscia woke up, they asked him where he was, if he knew where he was, and he said, "Yeah, we're in Philadelphia." I mean, he just totally knocked him out. That's how the game was played then. Just like the second, just like the thing at second base where you can't go in and make contact. Some of that stuff I understand the safety stuff out of it, but at the same time, it's taken some of the excitement out of baseball.
It really has.
I mean, one of the most famous Cardinal replays is of Ray Langford leveling Darren Dalton at home plate to score the winning run, and then Langford jumping up and down after he did it.
Yep.
I want your guys' thoughts on this. This is from a fan of the show. My only comment to this is Jake misread the play. He's been open saying he thought the ball was going to the opposite side of the plate, and he made a split-second decision. You can also tell it wasn't intentional, and the right call was made. I don't think people should go after Jake for this.
Again, it's all interpretation.
Yep.
I'm not going to tell anybody what they should or shouldn't think, but I mean, it happened, and you learn from it and move on. I mean, that's really all you can do. It's not like in Luke Corey's career or anything. He's going to be okay, more than likely. And so you just have to adjust and move on more than anything else.
From one catcher to another, Francisco Cervelli is done catching. He has a concussion now, and he's like, "I can't live like this." Basically, quoting him, "I can't live like this."
Once again, that comes down to the choice of the player. He feels like you got to know your position. You got to know, hey, if this is what's going to happen to me, then you got to take yourself out of that position, and that's what Cervelli's done.
Yep.
I mean, you can't blame him.
No.
I mean, if he would have been like, "I can't do this. I can't keep getting concussions, but I'm going to keep standing behind the plate," then you're going to be like, "Dude, you know what's going to happen. It's going to happen." But he knows the ramifications of the job. And if that means he doesn't get playing time, he doesn't get another contract, that's a decision he's got to make. And it's for the betterment of his life. And that's what he wants to do. I applaud him for it.
Yeah. And he's made enough money in his life that he can do whatever he wants at this point,
Yeah.
And, anybody that doesn't think baseball is a contact sport has never played catcher. Yadier Molina might be the toughest man on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
As beat up as that man's body is.
And that's why he reacted the way he did,
Right.
About that collision was, he knows what it is, and he's not happy with it, and he basically said it.
He let everybody know, and not so friendly of terms, especially if you didn't agree with him.
Yes, yeah, because some people came back at him, and he would right back at him.
I like that in a player. That's the kind of personality we talked about earlier that should be on this team from a pitching point of view.
Well,
But the thing is, Yachty is probably one of the best, comeback talkers in the sport. So I mean, I guess he can do that because he's the most respected player probably in baseball. One of them anyway. I can't say most because there's others like Mike Trout, but he is one of them. Now I want to talk to you guys about tonight. I know you guys probably won't watch it. Maybe you will. Maybe you won't. The home run derby this year is pretty interesting because you don't have the firepower. You have guys. I forget the order. I need to actually look that up.
Way to do show prep, Joe.
Yeah, I know, but
Nice
that's
job.
that's my fault.
Nice job.
Nice job. I know. But
No, I mean you got Matt Chapman who's replacing Christian Yelich. You've got Josh Bell and Pete Alonso and Vlad Guerrero Jr., Jose Acuna. Those are the kind of the names. Jock Peterson's in there as well. So I mean, really, you lost kind of the big name in Christian Yelich. That's kind of where you're like, oh, is this thing going to
Josh
even
Bell
be fun?
isn't a big name, at least this year.
No.
How
many people outside of Pittsburgh and baseball fans know about Josh Bell?
He could be a rising star, but yeah, he's definitely an unknown at this point.
I mean, the guy with the most name is Vlad Guerrero Jr., and only because of his father.
That, and probably a lot of people know Pete Alonso just because of New York.
The dumpster fire that is New York. Yes, probably. Carlos Santana's in it too.
That's the Mets and some of the Yankees. You said dumpster fire that is New York.
Wait,
so
when you say dumpster fire in New York, what's your mind go to? The Mets and the Knicks.
Pond scum. Yes.
The Mets and the Knicks. You don't go and think Yankees or anything like that. When you think of dumpster fire in New York, it's Mets and Knicks.
I'd also put the Nets in there, even though.
So
really, because they just got KD.
No,
and Kyrie.
before they got KD and Kyrie, they were the laughing stock of New York outside of the Knicks.
I
mean, they're
not really.
No,
really?
They've actually been to a finals.
Yeah, they were in the playoffs this year.
So I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, they're getting better, but I'm just saying over the past.
No, the Nets have kind of become the darling of
Yeah.
New York since they moved to Brooklyn.
Yeah. Since Jay-Z and them all took over, and
yeah, since they left New Jersey and went to Brooklyn, they're pretty popular.
Yeah.
Real quickly though, so is Carlos Santana playing guitar in between hitting in the home run derby?
just smooth all over. Like every guy just keeps playing it.
He's got to be getting pretty old to be trying to hit home runs. What is he, 60?
Well, he hits. That's a good point. He's also coming to St. Louis on Friday.
Not the
Wait,
same.
the guy that's hitting home runs or the guy that's playing the music?
Yeah.
So wait, it's not
both.
So wait, it's not the same guy?
What?
Yeah. Wait. I think the same guy's coming. No, I'm joking.
Oh,
But seriously, I don't know why Carlos Santana's in there and not Frankie
He can
Lindor.
hit.
Carlos Santana's a good player.
What about Frankie Lindor?
Lindor has been hurt most of the year.
And he's not I wouldn't consider him a home run hitter.
He hits them though.
But yeah, so does a pitcher.
So does
Adam Wainwright has home runs.
So does Madison Bumgarner.
Madison Bumgarner.
He wanted to be in the home run.
To be in the home run derby.
So I mean, you can't sit there and be like, well, he hits home runs. Everybody hits home runs. Bartolo Colon finally hit a home run. When Bartolo Colon hit a home run, you knew that anybody could hit a home run.
Now that would be an interesting home run derby.
Pitching?
Just let Bartolo stand up there and see how many home runs he can hit.
That would be hilarious.
That'd be pretty funny.
It would be. You got I wouldn't call it stacked lineup because it isn't. Matt Chapman.
Way to make people interested in watching this show.
Yeah. Well, it's gonna be boring.
Well, you know what? You guys weren't even wanting to watch it anyway.
That doesn't mean we're gonna tell people that.
I'm going to tune in every once in a while. I'll check back and forth. I'm just not going to sit there and watch. And it's not the same without Chris Berman. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Back. Yep. I grew up to
gone.
that.
He usually says gone, not yep.
No, I know. I know I wasn't going to finish that because I have too much respect. I grew up to watching it every year with him doing the call. Actually, what is your favorite home run derby moment of all? Like of all the years that it's been going on, there has to be one.
Gosh, I think Cal Ripken.
Ripken would be up there.
I think that's probably because he was one of those guys that you didn't think would be a contender, and he did what he did. Griffey Jr. and McGuire and Bonds and Hamilton and Stanton and Judge and Harper last year with Schwarber going back and forth. Like those guys. Another guy, Cincinnati.
Frazier?
Yeah, Todd Frazier. That'd be another one that, a guy that but stepped up in his hometown. That was pretty cool.
Your Bobby Abreu went crazy. Nobody saw that coming.
Yeah. And then it broke him essentially.
Yeah, that was the last time anybody ever saw Bobby Abreu.
Yeah.
My favorite was the Josh Hamilton just because it was a good story at the time because of the addiction he was going through and him trying to come back from that and hitting 28 home runs and the mecca of baseball in New York City. That was awesome. And then having 40,000 New Yorkers chanting his name is wow, just that's a great moment. What about All-Star game moments, guys?
Before we move into the All-Star game, at least like plug the
Oh yeah,
contest
that's right. That's
we're
right. That's
putting out
right.
there. I mean,
That's right. So we're running a contest that includes 2 tickets to the Cardinals Brewers game on August 21st. And if you can guess the amount of home runs or close to
you have to pick the winner.
You have to pick the winner, and you have to announce
total number of home runs
in
the entire competition.
And the closest you get to that number
without going over. Price is Right rules.
You will win. You will win those tickets, and we will get those to you. You have to get that in by 7:00 tonight.
Yep, before the Derby actually starts. Just go to our Facebook page. We got a post pinned at the top. Leave a comment on who you think is going to win and how many home runs total they're going to hit. And just a friendly reminder, Babe Ruth is not in the competition. Neither is Karraker or Ted Williams or any of the dead MLB players.
But Carlos Santana is.
Carlos Santana is. The 64-year-old musician. It's going to be out there. I swear if he wins, that'd be the greatest thing in the world. So go to the Facebook page before 7:00 tonight. Give us your prediction on who's going to win, how many total home runs they're going to hit in the entire competition. And you could be on your way to a Cardinals game, hopefully a playoff caliber deciding game in late August.
Hey, and then for an even bigger prize than that, you can find out what section I'm working in, and you can come by and say hi.
Yep.
That just made everybody not want to enter the contest.
Don't worry, you don't have to go see Scott.
I've tried that once just because I had to talk to you about something, and no one would tell me, like, they don't know where you guys are at certain points.
And then you text me, and I don't answer my phone.
Good point. You can't answer your phone while you're there, which I get.
I could. I just don't.
Good job.
I think he's saying he's ignoring you, Joe.
I know he is.
The nicest way possible. All right, anyway, who are you guys picking in the home run contest? I'm just kidding, Joe. I don't do that to you.
Well, no, I would talk to an usher there. They're like, yeah, we can't answer our phones during the game.
No, we're really not supposed to.
That's interesting.
Every once in a while, I'll take a picture and send it to somebody, show them where I'm working, but we're really not supposed to use our phones.
You're supposed to probably be paying attention.
Like almost every day at the game, you're like, beautiful night for baseball. At section so-and-so.
I don't do that every game, Joe.
Not every game, but most games. Most games I see.
Way to tell one of my bosses watching right now.
Good point.
Thanks, Joe. You probably just got me fired. So if you do come looking for me on that August 21st
he may not be there.
I might not be there. It's Joe Hamilton's fault.
No, but seriously, I'm sorry about that. No.
Sorry. So anyway, back to who do you guys picking to win?
Oh man, you know what? I gotta go Bell, just because lefties I think will have more of a advantage because you don't have that 21-foot wall in right field that you do in left field. Josh Bell for me.
I'm just because I don't really even care about any of the guys that are in it, and any one of them could really win. I'm gonna go with Vlad Guerrero Jr. because I just want to see that swing again, because I remember Vlad Sr. just raking, and to see that swing again in the home run derby, that's going to be exciting for me. I don't think he'll win, but that's who I'm going to pick.
I was going to go Josh Bell, but since Joe took that, I'm going to go with Pete Alonso.
That's a good pick too, and not a lot of people. Well, actually, there are more people than you think that he might win this because he already set the rookie record for most home runs in the first half. So that's a good pick. Now I want to ask you guys: is it a myth that the home run derby ruins a swing?
No.
No, it's not a myth, and I think we talked about this.
Because I don't know if we
talked about it earlier about how that ruined Bobby Abreu.
Well, no. How about because I wanted to talk about someone else. We talked about Jim Edmonds earlier. Do you remember that home run derby in Chicago?
Yeah, no, that didn't ruin Jim Edmonds because the next year he hit 42 home runs in the season.
No, it hurt him though because he was hurt that year, and yeah.
I mean, immediate aftermath. Yes, you guys, you're adjusting your swing. It's just like you go if you're a golfer and you go to Top Golf. You're not having your golf swing when you're at Top Golf. You're playing a game. This is a game, so their swing is different. So yeah, it's going to take a little while to adjust back. It's just a matter of pretty much how far you commit to hitting the home runs.
Yep.
And you can't really hit them that far because The thing is,
Really?
you
'Cause
only
I'm
get,
pretty sure they
I
were
mean,
hitting
they
them about
can.
500 feet.
They can, but the thing is, you only have a limited time. Now, if you hit 2 home runs over 440 feet, you get that extra 30 seconds. That extra 30 seconds can be huge. So,
So wait, you just said
and on top of that, you have to wait till the ball lands in order for the guy who's throwing to you to throw the ball. He cannot throw the ball until that
I'm
ball.
pretty sure Bryce Harper.
was just gonna-
Well,
Bryce
Bryce Harper got away with it because it was in Washington. That's just my opinion.
So you can't do it.
You can't. No, that's
but someone
that's
did.
the rule, but someone did.
Someone's going to run out there in between. I'm going to run out there and be like, you cannot throw a pitch until it lands.
I worry about those kids that are out there. Every year there are kids. What? No, every year there are kids catching. When I first started watching the home run derby, I'm like, watch out. Because
those are little league baseball and softball players, right?
Yeah.
Kids that know how to play the game.
Yeah.
It's not like they're just taking kids out there and be like, here's a glove. Guess what's going to happen?
I've seen some kids make some good catches too. Like,
yeah, because they're little league baseball and softball players.
You got to cover a lot more distance than you do in a little league softball.
But there's like 200 of them.
Yeah, it's not like they're playing the whole outfield with 3 kids.
I know. I'm not. I get it, but I don't know. It's fun. The whole thing is fun. I also like the celebrity softball game. That's always brought out some good moments. Pretty funny too. I mean it's funny. What?
It's different. It's different.
I don't know that I've ever watched more than about 10 minutes of the celebrity softball game.
That's pretty much all they broadcast now, I think. It's about 10 minutes.
Actually, like 1 hour, which that and they have maybe 3 commercial breaks during the game.
Once again, some of us have to work.
Joe obviously watches this every year.
I don't know.
He's got the career leaders in major league in average for the celebrity softball game.
I think Bo Jackson's leading.
That's not really a celebrity.
Yeah.
Well, no, celebrity and
what celebrity has been the best celebrity softball player out there?
That's interesting because
is it
Nelly,
maybe?
Could be.
Yeah. I mean, he is athletic. Very athletic after all.
Really
I also
invited back multiple times.
One of my favorite moments in this celebrity softball game is when they have Jenny Finch out there pitching and she just lets one loose. And you see the reaction of the hitter at the plate. They're like, wow. That's been my favorite part of it, the whole thing. I think
if that's your highlight, that's
tells you
I watch it
about the
quality.
I watch it for the laughs too. It's not just do you think I really watch it for the sport? I watch it for the laughs.
Are we really spending this much time talking about the celebrity softball game?
No. But okay, we got our picks for tonight. Be sure to get yours in by 7:00 tonight. Again, there's a pin post on the top of the page. So get it in. You might be going to a baseball game. So
sorry.
You're the one who has a dirty mind here, not me.
I mean, it was so it wasn't even in context. It was so just get it in.
But okay, so the Cardinals have a pretty much an easy road coming back from the All-Star break.
No, it's not an easy road. We just saw them lose.
Not an easy road, but I wouldn't say an easy road.
Arizona's a pretty good ball club.
Yeah, they are. They're actually, you know what? They've shocked me. They're not necessarily a story that I want to talk about from the first half.
But we're going to talk about it.
But we just went from an easy road to they shocked you and they were great.
Well, I mean, an easier. I should say easier. It's not the easiest.
We just played the 2 worst teams in the league and went 500.
Hey, you know what? I guess I'll take that than being under 500, right? I mean,
I mean that's just like polishing a turd, though.
Wow, you went there.
I mean that's the thing. You can't sit there and be like, well, it's better than being under 500. They're the 2 worst teams in the league.
They went 500. They came home. They take a break. They come back for the All-Star break. They need to win some games.
That's what it boils down to.
Yep.
They need to win some games. They need guys to go more than 5 innings. And if they don't have those guys going 5 innings, it's not going to be good second half. Now, if they do, and the bullpen continues its lights, they've been lights out when they have came in for the most part. If they continue that the whole second half, you're looking at a playoff team, maybe a division winner, maybe a wild card team. But you know what? At this point, I see the division well in reach. So,
yeah, they're only 2 games out, and the other teams are, just as bad as us.
but do you really see that happening the rest of the year, though? I mean,
It's happened half the season. Why can't it happen the rest of the year?
What do you think?
Yelich is hurt. If his back problems consist, Yelich is down. The Cubs, they have dealing with injuries to their pitching staff. I mean, you don't know what you're getting out of Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, which, by the way, we have not mentioned this. Did you see Cincinnati's jerseys yesterday?
I did. The sleeveless jerseys.
That was awesome. That was pretty cool. I think more teams. I think in Players Weekend,
I wouldn't want to see the forearms of some of these guys. Come on, are you kidding me?
Why? Does it intimidate you?
No, because it would be underwhelming, I'm sure.
Underwhelming?
Yeah. I mean, Yasiel Puig, when you saw him yesterday, you're like, okay, that's a guy that would wear no sleeves. But then you see something. Would you really want to see Bartolo Colon out there with no sleeves?
No.
Exactly. So you have more of the Bartolo Colonis than you do the Puigs out there. I mean, you're gonna have guys out there. I mean, Tyler O'Neill. People would want to see Tyler O'Neill with no sleeves.
We've already seen Tyler O'Neill shirtless after a game.
But are you think Tommy Edman in a sleeveless jersey is going to be something people are going to want to see? He'd look like me, probably.
Would you want to see Skip Schumacher when he was playing in a sleeveless
No.
jersey?
Why are we talking about guys?
I don't know. I don't know why. You just brought it up.
I just brought up the fact that I asked if you saw him.
No, that was cool. I'm just shocked that they're the only team that does that, and I'm not saying you want to see everybody not everybody looks like Yasiel Puig in the big leagues. So it'd be interesting. It would be totally interesting. They already have a Players Weekend, so why not
A shirtless or sleeveless weekend?
a sleeveless weekend?
So let's move on to something else.
Yeah.
Anybody see the women's soccer team? Let's talk about women now, since we've talked about men's shirtless. The U.S. women's team won the World Cup.
They did.
Pretty impressive.
Talk the talk, walk the walk.
Set a record for most goals.
Megan Rapinoe, who I think got the golden boot in this for the World Cup, sat out
Golden boot and golden ball.
Golden boot and golden ball. So there was a scary moment in that game for a St. Louis and Sauerbrunn, where I think she bumped heads with one of the Netherlands players, and it was pretty gnarly looking at her after that. Yeah, but she did come up, and
it wasn't scary for her.
It wasn't scary.
She got up, she was bleeding, she got it stitched, and was right back on the field. I mean, that's the crazy thing. I mean,
that's what I like to see in soccer players, not the acting that I see some soccer players do. Like, have you
Neymar,
ever watched?
Yeah. You can say Neymar.
Not just Neymar, because I watch
Premier
League, even Premier League matches.
Yeah.
You watch them.
It's the European style of play. Yeah. That's really what it boils down to, the European style of play.
Some of those are the best actors. I'm sorry. Some of those can win Oscars, and it wouldn't bother me.
And my brother's right. It certainly helped play against Thailand when it comes to goal differential.
Well, yeah.
So, I mean, 13 goals, that helps boost it a little bit.
That was fun to watch, though, if you watched that game.
Yeah. I mean, in this team, they did not trail the entire World Cup.
No, they did not.
And that's a very impressive thing. Became just the second team to win back-to-back World Cup titles. And you're really kind of starting to see that, you have to start thinking legacy now. I mean, you got the Olympics next year. You've got 2 teams in Germany and France that aren't even going to be there because of the way that the draw is set up for the women in the Olympics. Is they didn't make the semifinals, so they don't get to go to the Olympics.
Right.
So 2 of the toughest competitors out there. So you're pretty much seeing this next year is probably going to be the end of the road for a Megan Rapinoe, maybe even an Alex Morgan. Some of these other players, Kristen Press, this could be the swan song. But then you saw players like Rose Lavelle, who are the next generation. Crystal Dunn, Haran. I mean, they've got Ertz. They've got
they've
more coming.
Right. All this winning. You got so many young girls watching them and then wanting to get into soccer because of it. It's going to be a nice long run for the women's soccer team. Too bad the men's team can't do much of anything.
I mean, did you see the game last night?
I saw a little bit of it.
That team had the chances to win that game. I mean, Jose Altidore, in the first 10 minutes, he had a goal. And he just was like, he chunked it. I mean,
I agree.
Ochoa was fighting a hamstring injury all game. Second half rolled around. It's like Mexico made the changes, and the U.S. did not know how to react.
Yeah.
And it just makes you think and go, what is next? I mean, you had a world-class leader in Jurgen Klinsmann, wasn't able to develop the team the way he wanted it to. You lose guys like Donovan and Dempsey. Michael Bradley's he's still in his early 30s, but he's not the answer at midfield.
Right.
You're wasting Christian Pulisic. Weston McKennie came in and played very well. Cannon was actually a pretty surprise guy last night. I thought Reggie Cannon was probably the best player on the U.S. squad. You can't really fault Zach Steffen for the goal. It really wasn't his fault. And the U.S. at least has had some good track records when it's come to goalkeepers, going from Tony Miola to oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I blanked on his name. That's terrible. But I mean, it also shows you how men's soccer is. You can't remember his name.
Right.
But I mean, at least goalkeeping has been the back end, the back four, the two middle backers have been very good. So the back end is actually kind of not Bobby Wood, no, goalkeeper Nick. But the back end is actually starting to get a little bit better, and you're starting to see some youth and some good guys. I mean, you even got a guy like Josh Sargent who wasn't even on the squad from St. Louis.
Right.
So you got it's just that midfield range that they still cannot seem to find an answer for. And that's where the breakdowns happen. So until they can figure that out, and whether that means they continue to go with Greg Berhalter or something else, I don't know who else you can, not Casey Keller either. Who the guy, he plays for Colorado.
Yeah, I can see him.
I can see him too. He has Tourette's.
What is that?
Wow, that's gonna. I'm a terrible fan.
Yeah, I can't be
terrible fan. So, Bobby, where is Bobby Wood? He's an up and coming player. I have no idea where Bobby Wood. It's like the questions that you have about who they've been picking for the teams and what they're looking for. It's almost like they don't have an identity of what they want to be.
Yeah.
And when you've got a guy like Pulisic, who's probably one of the best players in the world right now, and you got a guy upcoming with like Weston McKennie, Paul Areola. I mean, you've got some good talent. It's just figuring out what your identity is.
So what was the U.S.'s identity when they were winning championships? When they
luck. The U.S. men have never won a championship.
Yeah, no, the U.S. men have never been good.
I mean, yes, they've won gold cups and stuff like that, but they've never been one of those guys. Tim Howard.
There it is.
There it is.
I almost said Tim a minute ago.
But yeah, I mean, they've never really had an identity. I mean, even when they went as far as they did in the World Cup, it was more so luck than anything else.
Right.
So, I mean, I actually think they looked like a good team in the first half last night. They really did.
Yeah, they didn't play bad. No.
But they didn't make adjustments in the second half. Mexico did. Mexico won the game. And that just shows you where the gap is.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's
couldn't make it a great day. It was an okay day.
A lot of people will say this now. That's why soccer will never be as big in the U.S. because you can never.
I don't think that's the case, though. Because the women's game is so strong.
Yeah, but what about the men's game? You can't have the men's game at the same. I understand it can't.
You can't have the men's game at the same level. Look at Brazil.
Yeah, no, it's just a weird thing because there's so many kids playing soccer. It just doesn't seem to translate when they get to a certain age for whatever reason in the men's game. Real quickly, what'd you think of going to the Clippers?
Called it. I called it.
Paul George going there. That was
surprising. Yes. For what they had to do to get him and all that, I was surprised that happened. But hey, big props to the Clips for making moves. I think they'll be better than the Lakers this year.
And now it looks like Russell Westbrook's on his way out of Oklahoma City. Be interesting. That'll be huge wherever he goes.
Yes, Houston is one of those spots that probably won't happen, but that they would really want him there.
How would that work?
I don't know, but
because you got a ball hog in what's his name? I keep forgetting his name. The bearded, I can't think of his name. James Harden. Thank you.
Well,
he's a ball hog anyway.
Well,
so
the thing about that is they already played together. They were in Oklahoma City,
and he doesn't play well with others. I mean, we've seen that.
They play pretty well when they're in OKC.
And on top of that, he doesn't play defense. You need a guy to play. You need a guy.
There aren't a whole lot of guys in the NBA that play defense.
No, I don't really see a whole lot of that anymore.
And I still don't think the Lakers are. I would keep hearing people go, "Ooh, the Lakers got Boogie Cousins."
Wow,
he's slow and old, and I don't see that being. I don't see the Lakers being that much better next year.
I don't either. I mean, they basically gave everything away for Anthony Davis. And they have LeBron at the end of his career and Anthony Davis and now Boogie Cousins. Woo.
Yeah, I'm not excited about that at all.
Well, when it's bad when your legend in Magic Johnson just steps down like that. You know it's bad.
Well, and that kind of gives you the question of what kind of control does LeBron have on that team? Because
I think he's trying to run everything.
Yeah.
Like he did in Cleveland.
Yeah, and you can't do that in LA because it's LA. It's not Cleveland.
Right.
So it's been a good show for Wags, for Scott. I'm Joe.
Thank our guest.
Thank you to Randy Karraker for coming on. Really, we really appreciate that. Can't wait to have you on again. We will see you next week. Hopefully, with Josh Bell as your home run derby champion.
My gosh. You
Yeah,
didn't
you
even
get
know
that
who
in
Josh
there.
Bell was before he made the picks.
I know. I knew who
come
he was.
on.
Yeah, I did. I watch a lot of baseball, man.
I know you do.
So-
I know you do.
So, all right. See you next week.
Great ending, Joe. Great ending.